The Navigating PVS podcast is for general knowledge and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult with a qualified healthcare professional for any health concerns. I'm Jen Jolie and I'm here with Jori Monick, and Jori and I go back a little ways. I had reached out to Jori because she is part of the PVS Facebook families group.
Yep.
And asked her a million questions about traveling to Boston very early on in our journey. So
Yep.
thanks for answering me all those years ago. And
Absolutely.
then fast forward, you've definitely, whether you knew it or not, you've definitely been somebody on my list to talk to because I think you have a lot to offer and you've been on this journey for a long time. And
It feels like a lifetime, but also like in a
like
snap of a
nothing.
finger, which is so
Yeah.
weird, but it does feel both ways at the same time. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And we were just talking about how things have changed so much in the 3 years since
Yes.
Summer's been diagnosed. I feel like the information we were given and the options we were given 3 years ago are so different than a family
Yeah.
coming into this today already.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree because so I'm thinking Avery will be 8 in October. She was diagnosed in winter, so February of 2018. And we went home after being told the diagnosis. You know, you're kind of in your own cloud of terror, you know, all the feelings. It's just a completely overwhelmingly terrifying time. And I remember them saying, don't Google. Well, that's the first thing we do is we went and Googled,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But the thing that was most scary, there was nothing. There was a page of this is what it is. And we're like, so what do we do with this? We had no idea because there was nothing to read about. And then at the very bottom, it said something about Boston Children's. We sent an email. And then the next day, when we went back up to the NICU where Avery was still at, we had said, what about Boston Children's? Because originally they had told us there's nothing we can do. And we were at a hospital where they were very nationally recognized. And so
Yeah.
we were in pure panic, like, what do you mean there's nothing we can do? And it did take me a little bit for my brain to register. What do they mean by there's nothing we can do? Because it didn't dawn on me that there was a very high likelihood that we were going to lose her. And so it was just a simple Google search and Boston Children's came up. We sent an email. The home hospital was amazing. And we're like, yep, let's get the second opinion. Let's see what we can do. And I think in maybe 12 days, we were in Boston.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said she was in NICU. My first question wants to be like how many veins were affected at that point, but
Yeah.
I want to go all the way back. Like,
Yeah.
why was she in NICU?
So she's a twin and probably about 18 and a half or 19 weeks, woke up in the middle of the night, you know, heavy bleeding. So we went to the ER. They had checked me and said, you know, your water broke on baby A, which was Avery. So at 19 weeks, they're telling us the likelihood of this baby being born is very low. So they're telling us all the statistics and it's a lot, obviously a lot to handle. So anyways,
And
I'm
you're
on
not
bed rest.
and you're not new to this. You're already a twin mom.
Yes, my twin, oh gosh, how old were they when they had just turned 1. So this was probably the summer. So maybe 15, 16 months old. You know, we're pregnant again. Surprise, surprise. And then Avery's water broke around 18 and a half, 19 weeks. We had our anatomy scan like the following week. So they're like, just go home, relax for a little bit, don't really do anything. We go back to the anatomy scan and during an echo or something, are you watching that sonographer's face, like how they're reacting to things?
Mm-hmm.
Because I that's what I was doing in that
Mm-hmm.
ultrasound. And her stature changed and she goes, I'll be right back. And I was like, okay, that
Uh,
made me feel uneasy, but you know, just keep calm, whatever. And then a doctor came in and we're like, we're gonna take you over to the meeting room. And my husband had to work that day. So of course, of all days, he isn't able to be there. And so we go into this room and my heart is just going. So I'm like, this is not normal. I've been through this with the other
yep.
girls. This isn't normal, but twins are considered high risk. So okay, just stay calm, stay calm. And so then they said her water broke. We're gonna do, gosh, I can't remember what they could do at that point. Just giving us statistics of all the things. I'm asking all the questions. And then at the end, and this had nothing to do with PVS. There was no cardiology talk at all. It was just the amniotic fluid that they were concerned with. They send me home. I'm still having the reoccurring bleeding. Probably a couple weeks into that, they put me on hospital bed rest.
Okay.
So now I have
Now you're
two
admitted you've
toddlers.
got toddlers at home, but you're
Yes.
okay.
Yes. My husband's like, okay, how am I going to work full time and take care of babies? So, grandmas and grandpas and everybody stepped in. And then 25 and 6, they were born and went straight into the NICU.
Okay. Both
And so
kiddos.
both kiddos, yep. And Grady, her brother, was there for 3 months. I think he was actually discharged on their due date, which is like the goal, right?
Yep.
And Avery just wasn't progressing along as Grady was, breathing wise. And they just were like, all right, well, some kiddos need more time. She's smaller and had all these things. And so then Grady comes home on the due date, and we are probably, so this is in mid-January. So now we're coming into beginning of February, and she's just doing the same. She's having trouble drinking from a bottle. And I remember being in there like, gosh, I feel like I'm forcing this bottle in her mouth and she's trying to fight it away. And I'm like, I'm telling the nurse, I don't feel comfortable with this. Like something is wrong. And they're like, nope, she's just, she just doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, okay, trying to take the advice of the medical professionals because we do not have a medical background whatsoever. And it's just that mom gut,
Instinct.
like you
Yeah.
just have to listen to that voice. And I was like, there's something not right here. And so probably a couple days later, they are like, well, let's just look into things just to explore a little bit. So we'll do an echo, an EKG, just to check because they're a big cardiology hospital. And that's when they found the PVS. And so she was probably, I want to say 4 months old when the PVS diagnosis and the hypertension, the pulmonary hypertension diagnosis came. We already knew she had the lung disease, just, she was born so young, but that about
Yep.
4 months is when that PVS diagnosis came in.
Which is, I'm always so grateful. I think Summer was 3-ish months old when she got diagnosed with PVS, right? Like they
Yeah.
were watching her for her septal defects, and we knew she was going to have open heart surgery because she's got this massive VSD. But
Yep.
catching PVS when they're 3-4 months old, I don't take that for granted anymore.
Right.
They're so tiny, and the fact that they caught it is like such a huge blessing. So she gets diagnosed, she's roughly 4 months old. They
Yep.
tell you that there's nothing they can do. You ask
Yep.
for the second opinion from Boston.
Correct.
They start collaborating, I assume records are being sent
Yep.
over. And what was the first impression you got from the Boston team?
It took a little time. The team at our home hospital prefaced us, we don't know if they will accept her. We don't know if they can do anything, but they are going to look at her records. They're going to meet as a team, and then they will call you and let you know if they're going to accept you. So we're literally for maybe it seemed like a lifetime, but it was probably 2 days to be honest.
Yep.
But every time our phone rings, we're looking, is it a Boston number? Okay, it's not. It's not. So I'm literally driving and I see the Boston number come over my phone and I'm like instantly shaking because I'm like, this is it. This is whether like in this next minute, I'm going to know if I lose my daughter or not,
Yep.
which is like monumental. So I pull over because I can't really function, obviously.
Yeah.
And thank God the other kids were not in the car with me. I think I was on the way home from the NICU. They said, we just reviewed Avery's case and what seemed like 3 hours, them going through everything. They said, we think we can save her. And so I'm like, what do we do now? What do we do?
Yeah.
And it probably took, I know it was less than a week from that phone call that we were there, but it was such a whirlwind of, okay, now we got to get a med plane out there. We got to set that up. Will our insurance cover it? What do we do if the insurance doesn't cover it?
You guys right off the bat did a med flight.
Yes, that was our original way, one way.
You're still in NICU, right? Like
we were in the step down unit of the NICU.
Okay.
Yes, because
Okay.
she needed the oxygen support at that time. Yeah, but we were in the NICU and we went from there straight. We had to go to the ICU in Boston. So there's a million things they have to go. Do we even have room? Do we have this? Do we have that? And
Yep.
so that takes a lot of time, but now hindsight, I'm like, holy moly, they did all that in that short amount of time. That's miraculous.
Yeah, we ended up taking med flights, of course, but our first experience was flying commercial.
Oh my
And of course,
gosh.
we've never flown with a baby before. And
Right.
I mean, I think in your case where you talk about like mom instinct, like I had, it certainly had instinct and it played through many times
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And, like I said, we have nothing really, even though I had kiddos at home, Avery was so different than anything I had experienced with those other kiddos. And every kid is so different. Like you could share your story or vice versa, but that doesn't mean you're going to experience anything that we did. I think it was Christina at Boston was like, it's great to reach out and talk to other parents for the support, but don't compare stories because it's just impossible to do. And I think that was the best advice early on that she gave me because that's like, oh, but this kid did this. You just have to focus
Mhm.
on your kiddo and celebrate the milestones because it's unfair to
Yeah,
compare, I think.
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that too, because I remember Christina, that's got to be like in her little book of things to make sure that she
Yes.
covers with families because
Yes.
it's it's easy to both over and underestimate how rough
Yep.
of a time your kid might go through by talking with another
Yep.
family. And even a
Yeah.
kid with multi-vessel disease versus some like Summers had 21 cath interventions at 3 years old. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah.
aggressive, but she tolerates it, right? And not every kid's going to
Yeah.
tolerate
Yeah.
many caths, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
there's other disease mechanisms at play, and you can doomsday. Like, look at what
Oh,
happened.
easily.
This kiddo got a cold and got put on ECMO. Oh my gosh, if Summer gets a cold, that's what's going to happen.
Yes. Yes. Gosh, we're probably 2 years into it. So 18, COVID, we were beside ourselves. We didn't really let anybody come to our house anyways, other than like close family, because that's the one thing, even in the NICU, even before the PVS diagnoses, they're like germs could hurt these kiddos. And so, we were already on high alert for that. And then COVID happened. And our parents are like, when can we come see? I'm sorry, you can't come into the home. And from our perspective, it's like, you understand this, but they don't, it's like
Yeah.
they don't live it every day. But also, I think there were hurt feelings on their side too. Like, well, it's our grandbaby. Why can't we come see her? She has all these awful diagnoses. So it was a lot of really hard conversations to
Hmm.
have with family members. And we were not prepared for that. It was very hard emotionally, not only dealing with keeping Avery alive, but now we have to explain to our family and friends why they can't come over, why they can't touch her, and trying to explain it to toddlers why they can't go stay at grandma and grandpa's. And then COVID happened, and I remember she had a heart cath. It was probably a couple days after the whole lockdown. I'm, texting with Christina, like, okay, we're supposed to be out there in a week. Are we canceling this? And the news is saying all surgeries, all everything are canceled and all this. And she's like, oh no, you're coming still. And I was like, what? How do we
How?
do this? We
Yeah.
can't fly. Flights aren't happening. So this was one of the times that we had to drive the night before. She goes, oh, by the way, don't leave until you print out this piece of paper I have for you. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is new. What's the piece of paper? She said we had to get all the doctors to sign this piece of paper to let you cross state lines because all the states you're going to drive through are not going to let you in. And so that's when it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm kind of getting emotional thinking about it. Like it was even more scary because
Yeah.
we had to have permission, like a document to get into states. I think it was actually just Massachusetts at the time, to be honest. Like you're going to get stopped at the border. They're going to tell you you can't come through. You have to show them this document. So it's very important that you don't misplace this document. So it was like a little bit more stress during that time. So I really feel for a lot of the parents that had to go through that specific time of COVID on top of the already scary situation of the PVS journey.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that because I think about that. Summer was born in May of 22, so things were just kind of starting
Maybe
to
slowing
loosen
down.
up.
Yeah.
Obviously, flights were happening. We didn't have to worry about
Yeah, yeah,
getting a
yeah.
hotel. But I think about that. Like the kids who were born during COVID are turning 5 this year, right?
Yeah.
So, like any kid
Yeah, that's
who's older
wild to
than
think about.
5 had to go through this. And how many kids
Mhm.
didn't get diagnosed
Yeah.
or, couldn't get treatment
Yes.
because of COVID?
Yes. Yes. I think about that all the time. Like, oh my gosh, I'm thankful that we were able to still do everything we needed to do. But what about all the kids that were in limbo at that time? And
Yeah.
that's a whole other scary bubble that I wouldn't want to enter into.
Yeah, yeah. I want to ask you a million questions about this, but this happens every time, right?
Yes.
Because it's like there's so many
I know.
different like little angles and these
Yes.
stories like our children's lives are so complex. I don't think
Yes.
the average parent can even fathom what we've all navigated with this
Right.
disease. It's insane.
Yeah. And I always say this to my husband, Andy. I'm like, if we hadn't experienced this, I know my brain couldn't even come up with the thoughts and feelings that it's even possible to have in this journey. Like your brain just can't even go there.
Truthfully, I feel like our kids are this beacon of hope for so many people,
Yeah, I
which
agree.
is amazing, but also like people don't get what they've been through to be that beacon of hope. Like
Exactly.
it's a lot
Their
of
normal is
trauma.
not normal.
No, there's nothing normal about it. All right, so you get to Boston on an air ambulance from NICU, and
Yeah.
what's your first impression?
Um, Overwhelming feelings because so we finally were in this room in the ICU at Boston and the team comes in and they say we just want to do a cath first to see what we're dealing with. We've seen the CTs, we've seen echoes, we've seen all this. We need to go in and know what we're dealing with. And so we do the cath. They come out and they took us in the little private room where there's the big whiteboard. And so again, my heart's going, I don't know if this is good, if this is bad, if this is normal. And they're drawing all the heart, the pulmonary veins. Everybody has that experience if you're a cardiac family. And I don't remember one thing he said other than when he turned to me and said, I think we can save her. Sorry, I'm getting emotional when he said it
Yeah,
because
oh
it's
my
so
gosh.
powerful because
Yeah.
this whole time you're like, are we splitting our family? My husband and I are out in Boston. Our other kids are at home wondering, why did they leave us? They're little. And it's like, that's all I can remember in that moment is I think we can save her. And so it was like a million pounds off of my shoulder, even though I knew we had a long journey ahead of us.
Yep.
It was just those words that were like, oh my gosh, I can take a deep breath for the first time in I don't know how many months.
Yep. Yeah.
So
It's
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 incredible
yeah,
feeling.
it is. There's
Yep.
this sense of overwhelming relief. I mean, Boston takes the complex of the like these
Yes.
are very complex cases. Okay, so he says he can save her.
Yep.
We want to do an initial cast.
Yes. We're just going in to look.
Just
We
look.
just want to see what we can see because she was just on that balance of is she healthy enough for this? Is she not healthy enough for this? So they
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to do too much, right? And then they decide we need to do an open heart surgery because we need to reconstruct these veins. We need to fix whatever we have going on in here. Because I want to say there were three affected veins. Two were
Okay.
really bad. One was okay. I think they said, we'll call you when we have an opening. We want to do this as soon as possible. I'm like, okay. And they called maybe 6 hours later. Hey, we had a random opening for tomorrow morning at whatever time. Do you want to do this? And so it was probably like 7 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
We're like, okay. I think now in hindsight, it was a blessing that I didn't have to prepare myself
Mm-hmm.
for the open
Mm-hmm.
heart surgery because we just had to jump in and just go with it
Mm-hmm.
because, yep,
And how does that go?
it went well. I'm also glad I didn't know what to expect and I didn't prepare myself because it was torture, absolute torture. I tried to do crosswords. I just physically couldn't do that. I just had to walk and pace And my husband had to try to put food in my mouth because you're like just physically sick. The feeling, it's just
Yep.
not a fun spot, but it went well. They reconstructed everything. We were in the ICU for, I don't know, half of a week and then back down to the regular floor. And they said, we want to start her on this new drug called Gleevec. And they said, we just got done a couple months ago with it was in the study phase. Now we can actually use it as treatment. And so Christina comes in, she has this big stack of papers. Shows this has all the information, side effects, all the things that you want to know about it. And she drops it on the table because it's just boom, like that many papers. You need to read through all of this and you need to sign. And so it's kind of like signing your kid's life
Yep.
away, in a
Yep.
lack of better words. And I said, so what do we expect out of this? How long does she have to be on chemo? You never want to hear your kid has to go on some type of chemotherapy. And she said, well, we are estimating a year to a year and a half. And again, I think this is another blessing because if I truly knew how long she was going to be on Gleevec, it would have been way more overwhelming. And so we started Gleevec, and then we also had to deal with her feeding issues. She had an NG tube at the time, and she had the NG for quite a while. And so that's when the conversation with Christina, she said, I think it would be in Avery's best interest if she had a G tube. And so I was like, well, that requires a whole nother surgery. I said, Christina, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't have any medical background. I have two healthy kiddos at home. The most I've ever done is given Tylenol through a syringe in my kiddo's mouth or
Yeah.
something. So it was a lot of panic. She really put out a lot of flames in those conversations with myself. So we had to decide, okay, it is going to be in Avery's best interest, not only feeding wise, but to give the Gleevec through. At first, when they were prescribing Gleevec, it was in tabs, little tablets. And we had to have the big, like 60 ml syringes, put the tabs in there with a certain amount of water and let it dissolve. And then we had to push through in the G tube. But the kiddos that didn't have a G tube had to drink it. And from what Christina had shared with us, it's a very big hurdle you have to jump. A lot of kids spit it out, and then you're worried about are they getting the
Yeah.
medicine that they need to stay alive?
Yeah.
So there's all these juggling.
I can attest to all of this.
Yeah.
Summer drank by mouth.
Oh my gosh, she had to do that.
She drank by mouth. We were very briefly in NICU where she had
Yeah.
an NG. So she was in NICU for like 7 days. Then we did step
Yeah.
down for a week to work on feeding together and
Yep.
went home. She went home on
Yeah.
bottles. Like that's what we did. When she had these caths, I want to say, did NG. So she had a
Okay.
diagnostic cath at home. Then she had her first cath in Boston. She had open heart surgery like 6 days after her first cath in Boston. She used NG during those times, but it's a longer story than that. But we
Yeah.
discharged still on bottle feeding. But when we drove back to Boston, she was like
Yeah.
throwing up all the time.
Oh,
And it was
yes.
similar, like giving her Gleevec by mouth, I would not wish on my worst enemy. We would
Yeah.
try to do it right before bed,
Oh
and one of us would
gosh.
hold her down, and the other one would
Yes.
like
Oh my gosh.
try to get the syringe as far back. And we tried all these different things. Like, I can't think of the brand, but they make up, it's like a pacifier style syringe
Where they
that,
suck through
yeah,
the
I
medicine
mean,
through. Oh
and
gosh.
and I we never had to deal with the pills. By the time we came around to Gleevec, we were getting it
Yeah.
compounded,
Yeah.
but it was like fluorescent color. And we're like
Gosh.
pushing it down our kid's throat. Our
It's the
baby, she
most
was still a
unnatural
baby.
feeling
It
in the
was,
world.
oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It was probably about a month or maybe 6 weeks after we started Gleevec. We ended up like failure to thrive. She's throwing up too much.
Yeah.
Long story short, she gets the NG. She keeps throwing it up,
Of course.
blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. I
Can
reach
she
out.
pull it at this point?
She didn't pull it. She did eventually
Okay.
pull a PICC line right out of her arm, but she never
Lord
pulled the
Almighty.
NG, but she would like throw it up, sneeze it out. Like we were
Yes.
so inept, and literally show up 10 days later for her next calf. And I just said to Christina, I'm not leaving here without a G tube.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, well, that's a fast decision. I go, I look around at all these other kids that have severe PVS and all of them have G tubes. We're not
Yeah.
escaping
Yeah.
this. It was so
Yeah.
easy in my mind because, like you, I'm like, I'm not a medical person. I cannot be dealing with this NG coming out all the time. Like the G
Yes.
tube
It's insane.
seemed this is the only option. And I was sick of pushing
Yeah.
chemo down her throat.
Yes.
Like,
I cannot, I probably would have gotten there much faster if we would have had to go home trying to do what you guys were attempting to do. Because from the stories that I've heard, it sounds awful. It's like torturing your child.
I mean, we would cry at night
Yes.
because like not wanting to do it, or if you
Yep.
had like a really rough time of it, if she threw up immediately
Yep.
afterwards, you're like, well, that was worthless. She didn't even get the medication
Yep.
and then we just tortured her. Spoiler alert, we ended up all the way with a J tube
Oh,
because
okay.
her pulmonary hypertension got so bad. Since last April, we have been working on getting her off the J tube.
Okay.
We're very
So what does
close.
getting off the J tube mean? Does that mean like
Getting her to
transitioning to a
G.
G tube?
Getting
Okay.
her so she has a GJ. So
Yes. Where is it like the two?
the two buttons, yep,
Yep.
one stoma. Christina kept bringing up, you probably gonna need a J tube. Like she's very sick, and they're
Yeah.
like, no. Again, back to like what's normal. The
Yeah.
G tube felt so much more normal than J.
Yeah.
And so it's been a long, drawn out process.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was curious. I didn't think Avery had to go to J tube, but Avery had pulmonary hypertension.
Yeah. Yep. She still does. Yeah. We've only had, thank goodness, that we've only had to be with the G2, which in my brain during that time was like, this is enough. I don't think I can handle one more thing, but we do because we have no choice if
Yep.
there's something else. It's
Throw,
funny because people do ask that all the time. How do you do that? I just don't understand. It's like, and I always answer with my straight, serious face, I have no choice.
yeah,
Like, what else am I supposed to do? Talking to your best friends, talking to your mom, your in-laws, your whomever that are very close to you, there's still that barrier, that full understanding of what we're living through every day.
yeah.
And finding the Facebook and then your podcast, I was like, oh, thank God. There's people that I can talk to that know they know the sleepless nights, they know the fear, they know all that. It's unfortunate that we've experienced a lot of the same things, but it's so comforting knowing like, oh, you get me. You get what craziness we're living through to save our babies.
Yep.
You're just so alone. You
You're
don't
so
know who to
alone.
talk to.
Yeah,
Your husband and yourself are talking, but
yep.
that's it.
And even with Kurt
Mhm.
was working, we needed that income to
Yeah.
survive. And
Yes.
so it was like sometimes I didn't want to burden him, but I'm also like,
Exactly.
you're the only person that like this is also your child, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just different. Like the mom's side of it, and not in every case, but I feel like oftentimes in most cases, somebody's got to work. It ends up being dad. In our case, it sucked because I was the insurance breadwinner. And so we lost that
Okay.
and having to navigate
Oh,
all that,
gosh.
which is not fun. Did you end up getting nursing at all? Or did you just
We did.
good? Okay, good.
And how she qualified is so mind-boggling. She qualified for nursing because she needed weight checks. And I'm like, of all the things, I'm probably most qualified
To
weighing
put her
her
on a scale, yes.
versus, everything else. And we're giving 2 doses of Lovenox a day. Like
Yeah.
I'm giving my child
Injections.
injections, but we qualify for weight, like a weight check. And I'm like, whatever, we have a nurse here. And that truly made me feel so much more calm because I always knew I can't remember how many times she came out, maybe twice a week at first, but it was like, okay, she's coming. If I had a question, oh, she has a runny nose. Like, can I've hooked her up to the pulse ox, but so there's all these like lingering questions in the back of my mind. They were a little comforted because I knew we had the nursing coming and we had, when she came home later on, we had speech path coming in, PT, all those things like later on, even though it was a lot of people coming in the home, which was stressful, it brought me a sense of comfort too, just knowing there were medical professionals coming into the house that could save me if I needed it or something, I guess.
When did you feel like she started to turn around? You kind of think about it early on. Like I think I always thought it would be
Yeah.
like balloons and confetti. Oh,
Yeah.
we've reached this spot. But
Yeah.
it wasn't until like reaching out to some people recently, I was like, yeah, summer's been pretty stable for the last year. We're still
Yeah.
cathing fairly
Yeah.
frequently. Like this will be a 20-week interval we're going for right now,
Okay.
which is like we still need to get further out here, but like
Yeah.
the pulmonary hypertension has been stable. Every cath is getting stretched out. She's got a couple
Yeah.
vessels he hasn't touched for almost a year.
Wow.
So we're making progress, but again, you think it's gonna be like balloons and confetti, like we reached this stable period,
Yeah.
and it's like you don't even realize it until it's been maybe a year, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I think we're at that point everybody kept promising us.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe I'm just not allowing myself. I mean, there's so many good things that I can say right now about the way Avery's living her life. Like, I finally feel like she's living like a normal kid, but we're still on Gleevec. She's been on it since she's been 5, 6 months old. And I think the reason why I can't let myself get there is because we've gotten to the point where it's okay, we can go 4 months, now 5 months. And we were at 6 month intervals for quite a while. And then it was like, oh, her vein is closed. And we're like, what? Whoa, wait, we made it 6 months with everything was good, even though we're still on the Gleevec. How did we lose one? And so it was probably a year or so of that kind of stuff. Oh, we had to throw in a stent today. And it was like, wait, I thought all the echoes, all the lung scans, they were all looking good. The gradients weren't too high. And so it was a lot of surprises like that where it's probably not healthy, but I've just kind of don't let yourself get excited about anything until we're
Yeah.
out of this, which is not a great place to be, but I think it's just the way like that I protect myself. But this last time that we were out in Boston, I always knock on wood as if that's going to change the
Yeah, yeah.
anatomy of what's going on inside their bodies. But when we were there a few months ago, we went in for the cath and they're like, you're going to go home and we're going to wait the 3 months whenever in July, mid-July is when we go to our home hospital to do the lung scan and echo. And if she's still stable, then we're going to remove the chemo. And I remember thinking that when they were telling me this, I had always envisioned the confetti, the
Yeah,
balloons,
yeah.
the clouds opening up. And I just remember having more fear because it was like, okay, this is such a great moment. We've been waiting for this for so many years. And then it's okay, we're going to take the chemo away. She's finally going to have an immune system and we don't have to have her wear masks and hand sanitizer. But then it's okay, we're going to have to check every month. She's going to have to get poked every month for the lung scan. And what if it comes back aggressively? All
Yeah.
the million thoughts going through your brain. So I feel like maybe that moment was it for me out there last time, but I just haven't
You haven't
accepted
allowed
it or
yourself to feel
yeah,
excited. Yeah.
yeah, if that makes sense at all. I'm sure maybe to you it does, but
It-
to the average Joe, no. It was
Probably
like when
not.
we came
No,
home, people are like,
no.
this is great. Like, that's such great news. And I'm like, mm-hmm. It just has always seemed like there's one more thing, one more thing, one more negative thing, you know? But in saying that, there's so many beautiful things that have happened
Yep.
throughout this journey. We've seen the ugliest. And to be honest, I think I've seen the best out of people. And it
Hmm.
really has changed my entire perspective on life.
I don't know that I've ever shared this with you, but you told me when I reached out to you, I was asking you about Boston, and you
This was at the
said,
beginning of your journey, you're saying?
yep, yep.
Okay.
I was asking you a million questions, and you were politely answering, and probably still in the thick of it very much yourself 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you said something so profound that I like want to cry because I think about it all the time. You said you're gonna learn to appreciate the smallest blessings. And I don't remember if it was like those exact words or whatever, but the
Yeah.
sentiment, right? And that stuck with me this whole
Oh,
time. It has been this anchor that you have no idea that you
thank you.
had this profound impact through a lot of hard stuff. So
Yeah. Whoo, look at us. No, for real. When you're in the thick of it, you have to. I feel like we don't have any other option to not look for the good because if you don't, there's so much that we can get lost in.
And there's some maybe not so good actors. Like I could name
Yep.
off a few people that I didn't have a great experience
Yep.
with in this journey, but so
For
many
sure.
more better,
Yep.
right?
Yes, for sure.
Liz Poe and I talked about this extensively, but I'd
Yeah.
love to hear how you made this real for your other kiddos, how
Hmm.
they experience it.
When we first started going out, they were very young. So it was very simple conversation. You get to spend the week with grandma and grandpa, you lucky duck, you. And just talking to social workers at the hospital when we're in there. How do I explain to my toddlers and Avery's twin why we're leaving all the time? I was a big believer in they know we're leaving. I can tell their behavior changes when they see me bring out a suitcase. They run to
Summers
me and
too.
hug me.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
they couldn't express it in words, they know.
Yeah.
So I would always make it a point to talk to social workers. What can I do? And I believe it was the second open heart surgery. We were there for 2 weeks. And during that time, we made a book. Avery helped when she was able to move around after open heart surgery. We made a book that showed every step of the way in a kid-friendly way
Yeah.
of Avery's coming to the hospital. She's hooked up to all these machines, and these are all the medicines that are helping her feel better or making her feel sleepy. And all the things. And then the social worker, such a brilliant lady, she said, we need to incorporate the siblings in this book because
Oh,
they're a part of this journey too.
yeah.
And it was this light bulb moment like, of course they are. If I'm in this journey, they're in it too.
Yep.
Their mom and dad are having to go. And so we laminated the book, and it was such a proud moment for Avery because she got to deliver this book about her and her siblings. And we read them the book, and they really loved that. And so I'm like, okay, they really responded to that book. So we need to find more ways to incorporate them into this journey. So obviously FaceTiming every time we're there, especially
Yep.
like when she's in her hospital bed and look at, I got my IV, all the things. And
Here I am
so
eating Jello. Here. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just involving the kids as much as we can in conversations. Once they started getting like school age, probably about 4 or 5, the older girls, I would start preparing them a little bit more. I was like, we can't just announce we're leaving. So probably about a week before we go, I'm like, oh, just so you guys know, on the calendar, see right here, we're going to Boston and it's going to be a normal day. Just kind of explaining, what their days are going to look like while we're gone. And now we're just in our groove and, oh, time to go to Boston. All right. Well, we'll see grandma and grandpa, or we'll see Mimi and Papa, and then you guys will be home, and just involving them as much as possible in the process and trying to answer their questions. One of the older girls looked at me one day. She's very inquisitive and always like 3 steps ahead of everybody. And she said, you guys are going to Boston again? Yep. Is she getting another heart cath? Yep. And she paused, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And she said, is Avery going to die? And it like, you
Ooh.
know, it was like, ooh, whoa, I was not ready for that. It took my breath away. And in my brain, I was like, I'm so glad you're asking me this now versus 4 or 5 years ago, because I don't think I would have had the stability in my emotions to not lose myself. But I said,
Yeah.
no, she's much healthier. She's growing now. She's still taking her medicine to help, trying to just keep as positive as a spin on it as I could. And she accepted, okay, all right. That was a profound moment of, wow, she's 9 now, but they do think about things like that when they don't necessarily talk about it, but those are the thoughts going through their little minds. So I was really proud of her for even asking,
Yeah.
but it did take the air right out of my body for a moment, knowing
Um,
that's what they're thinking about or
yeah,
potentially could be thinking about.
we have a 13, soon to be 14-year-old niece. So I know my
Hmm.
sister-in-law has had
Hmm.
some tough conversations, questions like that,
Yep.
where, like you
Yeah.
said, I definitely don't think I could have handled the, is summer gonna die question. I
Yeah.
mean, we were preparing to take her home on hospice at one point because she was so sick, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these existential questions, life, death, what is quality of life? When palliative care would come by in Boston, we would
Yep.
kind of entertain a conversation, but I felt like I was just going through the motions with them. Like,
Yep.
oh, they're here. I'll give them an update. They'll see that we don't really need them and go away. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
saw it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Kurt would always comment like, what? Oh, these palliative care people who really like it just feels like a waste of our time. And I'm like, yeah, it does. But
Yeah.
like it's a good opportunity to say what's happening and practice what you were going to tell people about
Yeah.
what was happening at the time, right? You're
Yeah.
like playing out the narrative. And it wasn't until Summer was really unwell that I realized, oh, this is a bank I have deposited in, and now I need to withdraw from because
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody sat me down along the way, or maybe I saw an Instagram post or something. It was like palliative care focuses on quality of life, and hospice care focuses on end of life, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it wasn't until Summer got so sick that we were questioning, is this a life for her and for us? That I finally realized the value of that palliative
Yeah.
team. Up until then, I just felt like I was just going through the motions. I was entertaining them, if you will, and didn't really quite get that there was a value in it until you start going, what is this all for? Like,
Yes.
and Avery was in the hospital from birth until
Until we came home from Boston, she was 6 months old. And I
it's,
think that's where that new perspective comes in, where for us, we just have to look at every day and take every piece of goodness out of it or memory that we have with them. Because as much as we hope and pray and do work our tails off, we don't have anybody telling us, okay, this is what it's going to look like from age 1 to age 110. Like
yep.
we have no idea. And I can see in people's faces, like when we're having this conversation, if they're not like a close friend, they're just an acquaintance asking and caring. When I give them those answers, just the look on their face. And I feel like I do more consoling of people than
Yeah,
vice versa. So
yes.
it's a very weird dynamic in the whole thing.
Last June, I had to take our LPN with us.
Hmm.
And so we bring Summer in for a cath. The nurse and I are leaving, and we get out. It's just downtown Chicago. So we get out and we're like waiting at a crosswalk, and the nurse is crying. And at first, you're saying
No.
like, having to console other people. She's crying, and my first reaction is like, I don't want to console her right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like kind of
Yeah.
angry for a second, and then
Yeah.
immediately my mind shifts. You are so blessed that you have this person here. This is her job, but she cares so deeply for your kid. Like, I'm gonna cry. Like,
Yes.
she cares
Yeah.
so deeply that she's crying right now that Summer's going to cath. Meanwhile, for
Yeah.
me, it's like cath number 20 or something. And it
Yep.
never gets easier, but it's
Right.
less emotionally driven or
Yep.
emotionally charged, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the amount of time you have to console other people that, like, yeah, we don't know how long she's going to live. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know if she's going to get really sick. We don't know what the future is going to look like. We share another parallel in that both of our daughters, our PVS kiddos, have
Mhm.
broken their arms. So,
Luckily, right?
yeah.
Yep.
The jury's still out for both of our girls. Like, what does
Hmm.
stability really mean? Summer's not on Gleevec anymore. She's on Zero. But like,
Yep.
what does stability truly mean? Does it mean they get to get off of Gleevec or Zero? Does it mean like cathing every year? There's no clear definition of what stability is,
Right.
but I feel like it happened while I was just going through the grind of it. Hope gets you through a lot of it. And then you get to deal with kind of normal things like your kid broke their arm. You
Yeah, I
know?
know. Yes, to be able to walk out of a hospital like in the same day was like, whoa, this is pretty not cool, but this is cool that we can just walk out of a hospital and be fine. I was told this a long, long time ago. I think it was probably Christina. She was always spitting out some really good
Yep.
advice.
Her little book of wisdom. Yes.
Yes. Yes. She said, you got to just kind of keep a little close eye on Avery, maybe a little bit more so than your other kids in normal kids situations. And I'm like, okay, elaborate. What does that mean? And she said, kids like Avery and Summer and a lot of other kids would fall into this category who've been poked and prodded and had surgery after surgery. They have a high pain tolerance. And
Yep.
so they may break their ankle jumping off of something and may be able to walk on it all day, and you would never know. And so, Avery fell off the monkey bars, I think an hour into one of our first family vacations. So super awesome timing. And it was clearly broke. Andy, my husband, is in law enforcement, so he's first responder trained. And so when I called, he was picking up groceries at the store. I said, "You got to come back. I need the car. I got to take Avery to the hospital. She broke her arm." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "I have zero medical experience, but there's a dip in the bone and I know it's broken. I don't need a
Yeah.
medical degree." And so we go to the hospital. They put a little stent on it, or what do you call it?
A
Not a
splint?
stent, a
A splint.
splint. Jeez,
We're
oh,
so
Pete.
used to
I
stents,
know.
right?
I know. So they put a splint on it. And as we're sitting in the ER, we're waiting a little bit. And she looks at me and she goes, "Can we go home?" And I was like, "No, you have a broken arm." And she said, "Well, it doesn't hurt anymore. I just want to go back to the beach and play."
Yeah.
And that was that moment where Christina Ireland's, when she said that to me, popped in my brain. I'm like, and this is the moment where she's like,
Yeah.
"I don't have time for this broken arm. This is nothing compared to what I've been through." And so I was like,
Yep.
oh, it kind of made me chuckle a little bit in the
Yeah.
hospital, like, oh Lord, I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for a broken arm right now.
You said stent instead of splint,
I know.
which made me laugh because we are working her up for a pulmonary hypertensive crisis. We're like, how do her lungs sound? Is she
Yes.
oxygenating? Is she doing okay? All those things are fine. Like, she's definitely not having a pulmonary hypertensive crisis. Why is she so crabby? Right.
Right.
And it wasn't until like shortly before bedtime, I see the way she's holding a toy. And I'm like, her arm looks weird. And so
Uh-huh.
like kind of then I start to think, oh my gosh, a stent has dislodged and she is having a stroke. Like
Yes.
that is where my mind went. Instead
Yes.
of a normal parent would be like, something's wrong with her arm. I'm like, oh my God, she's having a stroke, like right now.
Yes.
And so then you like then she is like full out chicken winging her right arm and
Oh,
and only using her left hand. And I just yelled out to Kurt, "Hey, you should come out here and eat your dinner because we need to take her in. This
yeah.
arm is broken." Like,
Oh gosh.
but like it didn't hurt that bad, right? It's
Right.
like she's like annoyed that it's not working, right? And maybe painful when she moves it, but she could have probably rocked that for many more days. I have broken my arm twice, so I
You
knew
know the pain.
it wasn't like there was a dip like with Avery. She fell down and she braced herself. And so it was like, didn't even break all the way through the bone, thank goodness. But
But still painful, it's
yes,
a
yes. And
oh, poor
yeah,
kid.
these kids probably have the most insane pain tolerance,
Yes.
you know, for all the things that they've been through. So you have to be super vigilant.
Even to this day, like we live next to a park or two parks actually. Avery will run over to the monkey bars and still to this day, I'm like, "Can we choose something else, please?" And this was probably a
Anything
couple of
but
years
that.
ago. She broke it. She's like, "Well, why?" "Well, you remember last time?" "Yeah, but I'm not gonna do that now." I'm like, "I know, just for me, please, can you go and play on something else?"
You could keep them in a bubble forever, right? But
Easily
that's
too. Easily.
easily, right? Like,
Hmm.
let's just keep them in a bubble. But from getting more physically active, her lungs are the healthiest they've ever been. And I don't think that would be the
Yes.
case if we wouldn't have pushed her and challenged her physically. So
Yep.
it's
Yep.
like, you want to keep them in a bubble, but if you do that, her pulmonary doctor was the one who was like, we have
Yeah.
to start taking some risks because her development is important
Yeah.
and her getting physically healthier is going to pay dividends. And it did. She had a wonderful
Yes.
virus season. It was the first virus season. She never got admitted, not once. Not
That's
We have not
awesome.
had an unplanned admission since April of 2024.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And even when she broke her arm, we got to go to the local hospital
Yeah.
instead of driving 40 minutes,
Yep.
right? They can x-ray it, they can put a splint on, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
They can handle this part.
normal
This
kid
is,
stuff. Yeah.
yes, yes. Yeah, because there's been times where we tried to do a weekend vacation up north and, she ended up getting sick. It was just poor timing. And we take her to the local hospital and they're looking at her, they're listening. They're like, "Okay, yeah, that looks like a little pneumonia, whatever." And does she have any diagnoses? And I just took a deep breath. I'm like, "Here we go." And I started listing, and the doctor put his notepad in his pocket and said, "All right, we're going to transfer you." I'm like, "But I'm not done." He's like, "We're not touching her." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, this,"
Yeah.
and that was like another like reality slap in the face. Like, okay, we can't just be the local hospital family.
Nope. We ended up switching pediatricians at one point
Oh,
because
okay.
I felt like every time I was going to the pediatrician, I was like giving a cardiology lesson and
Yeah.
was like, I don't know
It
what
should be
I'm
the other way
talking
around
about.
here.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, you quickly realize on this journey, like, oh no.
What would life be if we were, wherever a couple hundred miles away from our home hospital? We can't just take her to the ER.
No.
We'd be hours away. You want to just do what's best for your kid, obviously.
We would bubble wrap these PVS kids if we could.
It would make things much easier, I would think. It's a double-edged sword, but yes,
She
if
sees
I
other
could
kids
choose.
running around and doing all these daredevil-y things.
Yes.
My husband is much better at this than I am. I'm like, don't let her fall down or even come close. Don't give her an opportunity to even fall down. Where my husband's like, Summer, you want to go for a ride on the four-wheeler? I'm
Yeah.
like, oh God.
Yes. Yes, I really had to train myself because I think the thing that keeps me motivated to give her the freedom to be the normal kid and do normal kid things is just watching her run around. It's like she has so much joy, even though I feel sick to my stomach. I want to throw up.
Yep.
The look on her face of freedom and just being a normal kid, it like makes me want to cry thinking about
Yeah.
it. But it's a good motivation to realize, okay, I cannot keep my child in a bubble. She deserves to live life just like all of us. Quality of life is what we're always on the back of our mind thinking of, and even sometimes struggled with, right? And so just watching the face of her just enjoying life is such a reward.
That's literally what it's all about. Back
Yeah.
to my long meandering about palliative care is they can't tell you what quality of life looks like, right?
Right. Yep.
That is exploration, deep esoteric exploration that you have to do as a parent. You talk about like going, like cabining and doing those things. We haven't really gotten to do a ton of that stuff with Summer, but
Yeah.
we're like starting to bridge that. And
Yes.
this is what it's been about all along. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, obviously, basketball is a big
Hmm.
part of your family's life.
Hmm.
And has that been hard for you?
I played in college and then coached in college, so it's been a humongous part of my life. And then our kids play, and I do some skill training sessions up at our local school. And so they like doing that with their friends and stuff. So it's a big part of my life that I've had to like push to the side a little bit to raise my kiddos. But now, like being able to do that with them is very rewarding to me and fun. But yeah, it is a big part of our life, I would say.
Is Avery getting healthy enough to be able to participate in that to a certain extent?
Yeah, so I do kindergarten all the way through, like high school kids will come and train with me. And I would do this group. It was kindergarten through second grade. And our older girls did it. And then Grady and Avery got into kindergarten. And I said, hey, Grady, do you want me to add your name to this list so you can learn basketball like, from mom? And, all these friends are going to be there. And yeah, 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 sign me up. Okay. So we signed him up. And then I moved on to the next thing, not realizing that I didn't include
Mm,
Avery because in
yeah.
my brain I'm like, well, her heart, and we've known if she runs too fast and her heart rate gets high, she'll throw up, like literally projectile vomit. And so we knew, okay, we're going to have to bring activities to her attention that maybe aren't soccer or basketball or other high cardio sports. And she came over and said, I want to play. And I was like, oh, shoot, here we go. How do I
Well,
navigate this? I am not going to ever tell my kids, no, you can't do something. And in the realm
yeah,
of
yeah.
activities,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I said, you want to play basketball? Trying to just stumble over my words. And yes, I want to play. And I was like, okay, I'll sign you up. And so I'm like in my head, what are we going to do? But as she's gotten older, she's realized what she can do. And then other times where she just needs to take a break. And so in those sessions, and I'm so glad we did this because now she has gym class at school, but in those skill sessions, she would say, oh, Mom, I have to go take a break. My heart's beating very fast. Okay, go have a seat. Whereas when she was a little bit younger, she didn't know what her capabilities were
Yeah.
and would just throw up outside trying to keep up with her friends or peers or whatever, siblings. And So now she's really worked hard to use her voice and let others know, other than myself, because I'm usually like, okay, Avery, I see how fast you're breathing. Go take a break. But like in gym class, she'll like tell her teacher, all right, I need to go take a break. I'm going to go sit down for a minute. And then whenever she feels like she catches her breath, she hops right back in whenever she's ready.
What a profoundly humbling moment for you.
Yeah,
It was like you can't just make the choices for her in that
exactly.
moment. She checked you and you're like,
Yes.
okay.
And we are coming across a lot of those situations now. She's going to be 8 in October, and she's very opinionated, and she's learning to use, we always talk about use your voice, use your voice. And now I'm like, oh boy, she found it, which is such a good thing to see. But that's one of the things we've just always been working on is you have to become an advocate for yourself. Mom and dad have been here since you've been a baby, and we're always going to be here, but we don't know how your body feels.
Yeah.
So you have to really start talking a lot more in doctor's appointments and at caths, and we'll be at appointments or like in the hospital for a cath, and the staff just naturally will ask me questions about medicines or whatever. And so I'll purposely repeat the question to Avery and kind of force her to be in the conversations. And then the medical staff realizes, okay, yep, let's talk to Avery. And I'm sure every kiddo is different on what they're comfortable talking about and what they're not. But I just feel that there's so much value in teaching her to be able to communicate, in the medical world, because, and this is such a scary thought to think of, at some point she is going to be on her own having to manage, maybe she's going to have to take medicines the rest of her life, I don't know. When she's 25, what is it going to look like? I have not one clue. But that's what I'm trying to prepare her for it.
So that wraps up my conversation with Jori, which we recorded about a month ago, and it took me a little bit of time to edit. I just want to thank Jori again for her time and let everybody know that more episodes are coming soon. Thanks for listening.